This is Abnormal Entertainment.
Welcome, everybody, to the Cinema Head Cheese Podshort for The Punisher. This is Kevin Moyers, and I was super excited for this to finally happen. Netflix was really good at hiding the actual release date. They said November, and then they had little, kind of posters and memes up where they'd have the date scribbled out. And, I don't know the exact reason for it, for them not setting a specific date. Maybe they had minor changes they had to make, or edits, or who knows. I'm sure it was, done months ago, but it was effective in building the tension to it and the anticipation. Like, come on, when is it coming? So when I finally saw the date, I was like, yes, we're getting the Punisher. And, John Bernthal in The Punisher, in Daredevil Season 2, Dale and Beaker kept calling it Punisher. Let's watch more Punisher. Same way I was calling Thor Ragnarok Hulk, because, that's the part I was most excited for. So, I was really thrilled for this, and the way it opens, there will be a few little spoilers here. The way it opens is just bloody. It's basically John Bernthal as the Punisher coming in and taking care of what was left of the people he was taking out in Daredevil Season 2. Timeline-wise, I believe that takes place immediately after the end of Daredevil 2. They don't exactly say it. And honestly, I think this story that we follow is taking place somewhere. I was really trying to piece it together, but I think this will probably be taking place around the same time as a lot of the stuff in Iron Fist. And sometimes they'll give you hints to that, like maybe you'll see a newspaper, Danny Rand returns, or something like that. But it's really hard to tell, because it's like 6 months after all of that stuff in the beginning of the first episode is kind of where we jump to. And it's really tough. I'm trying to gauge between the end of that Daredevil season to the beginning of the Defenders, because in the Defenders we see Elektra come back, and I think that's a year after Daredevil ends, so it's hard to tell exactly where we are. I think it's somewhere in the realm of when Iron Fist is happening. So either way, we don't get clues to that. So either way, Frank kind of moves on. He grows his hair, grows a big bushy beard, and changes his name to Pete. And he's just working construction, strong, silent type, essentially. And, doesn't want to get involved in any shit. You see him just knocking walls down with a sledgehammer until his hands are bloody, just working extra hours, silently hacking away at these walls, just taking all his pain and heartbreak out on these walls. And he lives in a meager place, little studio apartment. The guys he works with, they're dickheads, plain and simple. They don't like that he works so hard because it makes them look bad. Those types. And by the way, if you are one of those people, hey, don't work so hard because it makes us look bad, or then you're a fucking asshole. I'm sorry. But, no, I'm not sorry. Fuck you. If you're that kind of person, you think everybody else should slow down to make you look good, how about you speed up and make yourself look good and stop being a dick? So there you go. I hate those kinds of people looking for the easy way out, and that's what these guys are. So there's a new kid, kind of starts to befriend Pete, but he's not having it. He's just like, you're a nice kid, whatever. He shares a sandwich. But he doesn't want to make those kind of personal connections. He needs to stay alone, basically. So he does that. These guys, the shitheads he works with, they get into some illegal stuff and try to rob these mob guys that are having a card game. And they bring this new kid along because he's like so dying to be accepted. Bring him along. Dumbass drops his wallet. His name is right there. And the boss sees it. And everybody's frozen like, oh shit. So he puts his wallet in. Frank he can't sleep. He's at the construction site hacking the wall away. And these guys show up. They're going to kill the kid, throw him in the cement mixer. Frank's like, no. Shit gets crazy. Remember, he has a sledgehammer. So, that gets him back in a kind of kill mode. Not that he's ever out of that, essentially. But, so, he's trying to just lay low as much as he can, and he gets a phone call from a guy calling himself Micro. Micro is a computer hacker, sort of. I mean, he worked a government job, released some information, kind of, Snowden-esque, or in on that kind of realm, like whistleblower, and was also, just like Frank Castle, presumed to have been killed. It's been a year since he was presumed dead. His family is, very sadly going on without him. His wife trying to cope, his kids trying to cope. He has a daughter and a son. But he wants to kind of blackmail Frank more or less into helping him. And there's a video from a mission in Kandahar that Frank's special ops team was with. And that's floating around, shows some activity there. A guy is killed. And what complicates that story is that guy's friend and partner, that guy was a cop in Kandahar. His friend and partner is now at the top of Homeland Security. And she's hunting down the people that killed him. So it gets really complex. And she's great too. It's pretty cool the way they did the Homeland Security stuff. Like when you're in the offices, the show felt very much like a 90s cop drama. And I mean that in a good way. When you had stuff like, anywhere from, and I shouldn't even say cop drama so much, because, like NYPD Blue and stuff like that, you had that dark, gritty, homicide and Law and Order were starting to come up, and it's just gritty. And, you had the two partners both troubled and stuff like that. That's how Frank and Micro felt at times. That's how the two partners in Homeland Security felt at times. It even had that look like those crime shows like Sopranos, Oz. If you watch Oz now, it almost looks like somebody shot it with like a VHS camera. When you're looking at it in high def now, because the high definition just changed the look. But it's kind of interesting that way to see it like that. but it almost makes it look more real, which is just, sounds strange to say, but that's how it felt. And it was really a great style to use for this show, whether it was intentional or not. Whether it was thought of that way or not, but that's how it felt. So you have all these elements going on. You have a couple guys that Frank was in the military with, one that runs a therapy group for veterans with PTSD. You have one that has a security company that contracts with the government called Anvil. Just all these elements in place. And it gets really complicated, but it works. Every piece fits. It's not like Iron Fist, where it's just going on and on, like, what is the point of this shit sometimes? You know what I mean? And that was like a 90s, legal drama, and the way that was. But that didn't feel like superhero. This doesn't. It does and it doesn't. I put this akin to Winter Soldier, Captain America Winter Soldier, where it's still a superhero movie, but it didn't feel like it. It felt like an action thriller. And this was kind of like that, It had that, you're watching a comic book, but it felt like this didn't even have to have a comic book element to it. It really almost didn't. It was more real than any of those. Because this is a guy who was in the military. He just happens to be the biggest badass you'll ever know. Just so good. I couldn't get through this as quickly as other shows. Not for anything other than it's dense. There is a lot going on, and you really need to absorb it, which I love. Wow, lot to take in, all important. There was no fat on this whatsoever. None. I mean, everything you saw mattered. So many great characters in the show. I love the dynamic between Frank and Micro. So good. It changes through the course of the show. I don't know. I loved everything about it. And the way it ends is great. And just the two words it ends with are almost the antithesis of what you think of the Punisher. And I thought it was beautiful. It was just a very, almost a poetic way to end the show. And I will not spoil that part if you haven't watched it. But those last two words he said, God damn it, that's everybody deep down somewhere has that. So it's just great. Highly, highly recommended. Of the Marvel series, my favorite to date is Luke Cage. I love the Defenders, but Luke Cage is still my favorite. But I don't know, Punisher may bump that or sit next to it as number one. If you ask me between the two, I'd say I don't know. I have to probably really say the Punisher is a better series because there's a little bit of fat in Luke Cage, and it's a little weird transitioning from one giant villain to another halfway through the season, but which is everybody's big complaint about it. I don't really think it's that bad, but this is just, it's solid all the way through. And as I got toward the end and more excitement built up, I did watch a few. It took me about a week to finish it all. Just under I finished. It went from Friday to Thursday and I made it. So really good though, all the way through. Probably the best of the bunch. So yeah, check that out. Punisher, Netflix from Marvel, and I can't wait for season 2. They haven't announced it yet, but I'm sure it'll happen. And the only crossover character from the other series was Karen from Daredevil. So, well, I shouldn't say just Karen, because her boss at the newspaper is also in it. So those are the two crossovers from the other series. No Night Nurse in this one, but they announced that way before this even aired, when they started shooting, that she would not cross over into Punisher. So, but Karen and her boss are it. What's the guy's name? He's the one, like, kind of petty criminal that is a real skinny dude with a beard. He's the one petty criminal that has crossed into, he was in Daredevil, he was in Luke Cage, I think he was in Iron Fist, pretty sure he was in Defenders, but he's crossover. I can't remember the character's name, but he's in this. So, yeah, he's the other crossover, and he's just, I don't think people think about him, because he's just a criminal. Then he's not a major character, but he's had his important points. So, but there's a funny scene with him in a pink rifle. So, yeah, again, not a major plot point, but an important thing in the story. And I don't know, just watch it. If you haven't yet, just watch it. And if the opening scene doesn't blow you away, then you have no pulse. That's it. So, anyway, thank you for tuning in. As always, sponsored by Bunny17media.com, small publisher that carries some fine books by some fine creative types. That is a small publishing label that I created with my daughter, and everything there for Cinema Head Cheese listeners, readers, etc., is 15% off. That's paperbacks and ebooks, if you use the code CHC at checkout. So 15% off. I'm not taking that promo code down anytime soon, but you can get, we have 9 titles up there right now, and there will be more. Let's talk about Scorn. If you like Vigilantes, I always attach this, and Punisher fans always like it. I wrote this book, started on it 15 years ago, put out the first issue, now have the complete book, and the noir edition, black and white, manga size paperback. It looks really great at that size. When I brought it down to manga size, I didn't know how it would go, but it looks so good. But it's a great vigilante story. It's a 19-year-old Michael Riggs sees the murder of his best friend at the hands of a vicious Chicago gang leader, and he starts to hunt the gang down one by one until he gets to the top of the heap. And it is has some blood in it, has some guts. It's in a very unique art style. Philip Nundorf is the artist, a guy out of Berlin. And remember the early days starting this, we'd have to sit online for 12 hours at a time, just talking to each other as he was uploading pages to me. It was really, really a great, fun, important time for me. And of course now you can just Dropbox everything, and I can have it in 10 minutes. You know what I mean? But it's a 90-page book, 92-page book, and it is a very fun, good-paced graphic novel. So almost a young adult version of Punisher. So check that out. You can get that 15% off, ebook or paperback graphic novel with the code CHC. And we will have a hardcover Ultimate Edition coming out very soon, once I get all of the pieces put together for that. And that will be in full color and include additional artwork from Philip and all of the scripts that we used. Dave Hayes co-wrote books, chapter 3 and 4, the second half of the book. So, it was really great to get this all together. And as we get the hardcover together, that will be a limited quantity item. So that is something I'm looking forward to. But anyway, bunny17media.com for that. CHC when you check out. Ebooks, paperback, everything 15% off. And don't forget to go to cinemaheadcheese.com. Check out all the articles there. Peggy Christie, Greg Goodsell have been pumping them out, which is great. A lot of reviews from them lately. And, of course, more podcasts. And go to abnormalentertainment.com to check out all of the podcasts there. And we will see you next time.
Subscribe and download back episodes of Cinema Head Cheese the podcast, and read all of our movie reviews and news at cinemaheadcheese.com. Email us at cinemaheadcheese@yahoo.com. Search Cinema Head Cheese on Facebook and tweet us at CINHeadCheese. And for more podcasts, books, comics, blogs, and videos, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.